Here we have the old spring unit as it came out of the chair. What we need to do with this is just cut off all these old spring twines, and we want to get all these coil springs freed up. Cut the webbing. And just keep working at this until you get it all disassembled. Okay, we've got these springs all cleaned up now. All the strings are in, all the webbing's off. So what we'll do is we'll position these on the chair. I've got these springs all cleaned up, ready to go on the chair. I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you the difference in spring types that you may find. This particular spring, as you can see, the end of it is wrapped around the coil below it. Very often you'll find springs such as this that are not wrapped around, and the end is just bent down to so it won't stick up through in the upholstery. When you're installing these springs of this type, the only difference is you'll just have to tie these two together. So it's not really a big a deal, it's just a little different procedure. So let's get these put in the chair. Here we have the springs positioned in the chair. I've aligned them so all the closed ends on the spring where it wraps around the coil are positioned to the rear of the chair. I like to do this just to keep things symmetrical, and if these were the open type springs, I would do the same thing. It makes it a lot easier as you're tying the springs, because that's the part of the spring you want to tie first to keep the spring from bending on you as you complete your spring ties. What I'll do now is go through and demonstrate how to attach the springs to the webbing. If you're doing this at home and you don't have any special equipment or any special tools, you can use a needle and a heavy thread to tie them as they were originally in this chair. I'll be using a little different procedure. Here is a set of hog ring pliers and a hog ring. This is what I'm going to be using to attach my springs to the webbing. What you do here is you just pinch this up through the webbing and around the spring, and you can just tighten it up by squeezing the handles like this. Works really fast. The only reason that I use these over tying is because it just takes too long, and I have too many chairs to do. It would be really inefficient for me. And they also make another tool called a clinch it tool, but I don't use that because I do a lot of automotive work, and the hog ring and hog ring pliers are used primarily for automotive work, and they work just as well for spring work in furniture. So we just stick with one tool for both applications. What we want to do is go between the spring and the webbing and just tighten it up on there. You should put about 3 of them in here in a triangular position. You don't have to go through both layers of webbing. Sometimes you can get underneath a layer where it comes up over in a basket weave pattern. Sometimes it's easier to go through both. And don't be afraid to take a spring out if it makes it easier to get in there. Here we're only going to go through 1 layer of webbing. It's alright if it curls your webbing a little bit. That won't bother anything at all. So what we'll do now is I'll go through and I'll continue this procedure on each spring. And that holds that spring in place pretty well. That's never going to move on you. The springs are now all in place and attached firmly to the webbing. The next step is to drill pilot holes for the spring up nails. On the left is a spring up nail right here. On the right is a number 14 webbing tack that I explained earlier. Very often I see furniture that has used the webbing tacks for spring up nails. I would avoid that if at all possible. the webbing tack really is not strong enough to support a properly tied spring system. If you cannot find spring up nails in your area, or if you don't really want to go to the extra effort of especially ordering those, you can substitute roofing nails in this case. If you substitute a roofing nail, the head is not quite as strong, so you just want to make sure that you hit the top squarely and try not to bend that over. If you can do that, a roofing nail will work fine for you. Okay, now it's time to apply our spring up nails. And what we want to do is we want to put one spring up nail on each side of the center line of the spring in the front. In the back rail, we're going to do 2 spring up nails on off each center line. And what I've done to set up my my drill bit is I've used a drill bit that's just slightly smaller than the diameter of the shank on the spring up nail, and I've set it here so that the bit is just as deep as the nail. There's no need to go any deeper than we have. Here are the spring up nails applied to the rails on the side and across the front. Now what I'll do is I'll go through and we'll do the double nails off each center line of the spring. Here we have the back rail. As you can see, there's 4 spring up nails, 2 on each side of the center line of the spring. And also along the side rail, opposite the side rail that has 2 spring up nails off each center line. Now I deviated a little bit from my plan. As if you remember, on the opposite rail on the side, we only had 2 nails coming through the hole in the arm frame. Now, rather than put another nail on each side here, there really isn't room to do that here. So I'm only going to use 2 here, and I'll explain when I tie the springs how I'm going to make this work. Now the moment we've all been waiting for. You can get some spring tying going on. What I like to use for this procedure is what's called a ruby twine. This is a special spring tying twine, and it's all natural fibers. Some people like to use a nylon twine. Myself, I prefer to use all natural fibers in all the furniture that I build and the furniture I reupholster. I think it's environmentally friendly, and I also think that the nylon twine is a little slippery, and the ruby twine seems to hold a knot a little better, in my opinion. It's also a good idea, if you buy your twine in a spool like this is, to put some tape around the outside of it. You can use clear packing tape or some masking tape, works well. It helps to hold the spool together. While you're working with it. And I pull it out through the center. Next thing we need to do is determine how long we need our pieces to be. And I do that by bringing it through here. And I usually go beyond the spring up nails, about 6 or 8 inches. Drape it across the top of your spring. And there again, go another 6 or 8 inches beyond the spring up nails. Fold it in half at that point. And then I like to add another 6 or 8 inches and cut it out. Now we're going to want 4 pieces of twine at that length. So we can just use the one we cut as a guide. pull it out, cut off 4 pieces. And I've just gotten to a habit over the years of just draping these over my neck. Now you take one of your strands, put the ends together, and you find your center point. You want to take that center point between your 2 spring-up nails